Hello, good morning. Good
Good
morning.
morning, Prof.
Good morning, bro.
Morning, bro.
Yeah, my name is Professor Richard Boateng, and I'll be taking you for advanced qualitative research methods. Today is our first session. So what I'll do is that I'll take you through the introductory part of the course, and then I'll enter into the first session. So that's what we'll try to do. Um, this course is taken by the PhD students who are in year one. If you have been able to come this far, then we thank God that you survived Professor First class and then all the other classes that you took, Dr. Ahmed, the other classes that you took, then you have been able to. So what we are going to do today, this particular year, is to understand what qualitative research is about, and then the key methods that we can apply in qualitative research. Just as you did advanced quantitative research methods, this is about qualitative research method. So I will show you the syllabus and then let you understand the difference between this one and then the quantitative research methods you did last semester. So let me just swap my screens and then share the course syllabus. So this is the course syllabus. You can see it here. My majority of our class, in fact, primarily we're taking online, unless otherwise, then I'll let you know. The course aims at introducing you to qualitative research techniques and then also helps you to understand academic literature and then review it to be able to come out with a research problem that will lead to your research papers, questions, and then eventually your theoretical framework and then your data collection towards the end. So what I try to do in the course is to teach you the whole PhD as a mini project. How do you start the PhD program and then end up with a thesis that you are bound for submission? What Dr. Hinasari taught you was just an aspect of the analysis, that's quantitative analysis. I have to teach you how do you even get a research topic to start with, then run through it to the end. So that's quite different from what Dr. Hinasari taught you. So that's what I'll be doing. And you have seen my face now, so I can switch off um, because technically some of you have got low bandwidth, so I don't want your streaming to be affected by my video shoot. Okay, so
Yeah,
let's.
no worry, dog.
Okay. Um, we usually don't do a kind of an sit-home exam. It's more of a take-home term paper, which is more about 70%, and then the class participation is an assignment is about 30%. But we may, depending on what, because of COVID, we flipped it last semester where we did the term paper became lesser. I think about 40, then the all the other assignments was about 60. So it depends on, I will discuss with you and we'll negotiate as we go on. Um, okay, so what do we do? We usually cover defining research, understanding qualitative studies, linking it with research paradigms. Now, even though I've put the sessions as this, because the objective is to teach you how to do research, I actually collapse some of the sessions together. So you may realize that some of the sessions I put here, I'll be teaching them as part of something else. For example, today I'll talk about a little bit about session 5 and a little bit about session 1 and a little bit about session 3 at the same time. Now, the reason why I do that is that I am aimed at helping you produce your PhD, not just about finishing a course. So if you came here to think about finishing a course, you can use this outline. But if you came here to be able to understand how to complete a PhD, then this will follow what I'll be doing. The reason why we do that is that you are all at different stages of have different capacities in research. So as I teach you, I learn on what I should concentrate more on so that I can be able to better serve you, then make use of the money that you have paid. I think you have paid about 15,000 Ghana cedis. That's about, if I'm right, it's about, is it $2,700 or $2,000? And that's quite a lot of money in Ghana now. So I want to make use of it. I want to help you get the best value out of your money. Is that okay?
Yes, Prof.
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
Yes.
So we'll go to qualitative data collection, we'll do qualitative data analysis, and then writing qualitative study. Validation, we'll do that, then concluding qualitative research. We just have about 11 weeks. So what I did last year is that because of the things is quite packed, we were having two sessions. We had one, I think, on Friday, and we're having one on Monday. So it's up to you. If we may have to add another one more session to this Thursday class. It helps me to be able to cover more with you. But let's just start and let's see. Then we can be able to think about what we will add. Okay. So that's about it. And somebody will ask them, so how does the 10 paper look like? Okay. Usually I give assignments such as this. There's this assignment here, part A, that you choosing a research topic of your choice, define a research problem. Then based on the research, develop 3 research titles, research purposes, and corresponding research objectives and questions. So this is something that we did last year. It's kind of here. And then there's also a research proposal you're supposed to write. Okay. Despite the assignments you see here, the ones I'll tell you to focus on is the one on Sakai. Because what I do is that I rephrase these assignments into deliverables. So by the time you realize part A will be done over 3 different structured assignments instead of one big assignment that you see as a submission date July 2021. So don't worry too much about what you see here. Focus on what you see on Sakai. After I finish teaching you, I will be able to assess where the class is and then be able to know what type of assignments will help you to be able to catch up faster. Okay. I hope that is okay.
Thank you, bro.
Yes, sir.
Yes, bro.
So what I said is I focus on what is on Sakai. Sakai is our learning management system. And if you go there right now, there's one assignment there. It is based on what I'll be teaching today. And it will build up to doing this particular assignment, part A. And it also build up to doing the part 2. So I've combined the first assignment I'm giving on Sakai to help you do part A and part B. So by the time you finish, if you follow all that you do in on Sakai, by the time you finish, you realize that you have done all the 2 assignments already. So don't worry too much about what you see here. This is to fulfill all righteousness. That's why you have it here. But on Sakai, I break it down as incremental assignments. That helps you to do these ones. I hope you understand me. The teachers who are among us, you may be asking, why does he have a syllabus? And he's saying that we should do what is in the syllabus. What we do is that the syllabus is given for the program. As you run the syllabus, you have to know the learning style of the class, and then the level of understanding of the class, so that you can be able to adapt the syllabus to fit them. The student is the target and is the consumer. It's not the syllabus that's the consumer. The student is the consumer. Am I right?
Sure, Prof.
Okay, thank you very much. So I have only one student who is active. Part of what I do is that I look out for active students. And if you're not very active, when you come and ask me issues for me to help you, I'll also be very inactive. So please, the teaching, I'm a lecturer today. By the time you finish your PhD in 2025, 2026, you'll be the expert in the area. So I'll be learning from you. So please, we are friends. So I expect all of you to participate. Don't hide behind the screen and just be sitting down doing other things. Let's participate and then you can learn. That's the only way you can learn from me. The more you engage me, the more I can be able to teach. If you don't engage me, I will just teach it as is. I can teach this at the master's level. I can teach at the undergrad level. So depending on how you engage me, I'll give you what will be very good for you to finish, or what is just generic for you to use in the textbook. So please try and engage. And I want to have that interaction as I ask questions. Doctors, you are welcome.
Thank you, Prof.
Mr. Enim Anyana, you are also welcome. Loretta. So I would advise that all of you,
Thank you, Prof.
all of you who are here, as we go on the class, please rename your name with your official names and then your index number, so that when we are assigning marks as part of all the righteousness we have to fulfill for the course, I can assign marks to those who come to class and those who don't come to class. So Charles Oforio, also your index number is not there. So rename your name and add your index number. Kindly do that. As by the time the session ends, I expect you to have done all of it for me. Thank you. Gilbert, you know that this is what I expect of you. You want me to come and say it. All those who are in MIS, don't let me say this because you know this already. Doctors, thank you very much. Okay. So, hey, Resta, my senior man, I didn't know you are here. So you're welcome.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you, Prof.
And then I was expecting to see Francis. I think Francis is not here. Okay, Francis is here. Oh,
Prof, I'm here.
okay. Cashman, you are also welcome. And then the honorable among us, you are also welcome. I don't want to mention your name. Okay. Thank you very, very much. So we have now understood our syllabus. Is there anything you want to ask me before I switch on to our first session? Okay, nobody's asking a question. Please, you can ask the question directly or you can raise your hand and I can call on you. Okay. Okay, so welcome once again to Qualitative Research Methods. Today's session one, we are looking at qualitative research. To be able to do this very well, I need to go back and then explain what research is, take you through the research process and then the types of research, then end up coming to research, qualitative research, key features of qualitative research, types of qualitative research, and the centrality of a PhD research. So I'll be discussing these things at the PhD level. Okay. One thing I need to also show to you, which I failed to show, is the fact that I think I'll do that at the end of the session. There is a YouTube page where all the videos of the class will be. So if you go there, I'll show you how to access it, and then you can actually use it to catch up. Anytime we finish the session, hopefully by 3 days after, the video will be there online for you to be able to watch on demand at the time that at your own pace, and you can be able to pause and then understand. So it will be a video per the class. The videos of last year and other years are there, but every year group, I also do a new set of videos because the style of teaching may differ. The question they may ask may differ, and then our engagement may also have a different approach than as compared to what we had last year. But whatever it is, the material there is very good. But I'll also be creating a class page, a class playlist for you to see the videos for this particular class. Okay, so you see on that particular channel on YouTube, you also find other videos for the MBA class. So you can even watch both of them and see how differently I teach on the MBA class and then in the PhD class, especially for those of you who are lecturers going back to your universities to teach. Okay. So we are using Research Made Easy, the last year's edition, which is the second edition, and it's I think it's almost finished at the bookshop, or it's finished because of the fact that a lot of people are getting it at this time. But if you can contact the details that Obed put on the platform, you can have one, hopefully. I think they have about 40 copies in my office now. So if you can contact them, they can help you get some of them. Hopefully, unfortunately for you, we have research methods is taking from undergrad to master's PhD level in the second semester. So I have a very packed session and everybody is going in for the book. So please make sure that you try and get a copy. That's the advice I have for you. Okay. Then, so let's go to our session. If I've taught you in master's program before, so you may be familiar with some of these things. So forgive me if I am repeating myself again, but I'm hoping that I can engage with you. I can engage you on a different level. So defining research is my first topic. Now, the fundamental concept that people have with research is that it's an investigation into a particular topic of choice or which may be given to you or by reason you need to do that. And that investigation connotes the fact that everybody thinks that any investigation that has been done by anybody is research, but we don't accept that at the PhD level or the master's level. The reason being the fact that the research that we carry out is not necessarily just going to investigate. Researchers in academic frontiers always have something in mind why they are carrying out the research. Researchers carry out research in an organized and systematic way because they want to find answers to questions. And that organized and systematic way is what differentiates it from being just an investigation. Now, we say that research is systematic because in carrying out research, we all have to appreciate that we belong to different scientific disciplines, and that scientific discipline has its rubrics or procedures and principles about or on what is acceptable as research in that area. So if you have a finance major or an economist discussing things concerning findings of a study or even recommendations for development in the community based on his research, you realize that he may focus more on the economic factors. But if I bring a cultural anthropologist to that same environment, that person may be looking at how to be able to preserve traditions and other things that may not necessarily be captured as be seen as economic issues or economic factors. but both of them are looking at development in that same community, but they are all coming from different theoretical lenses or disciplinary lenses. So the discipline that you belong to informs the type of research that you carry out and what is acceptable as research within that particular discipline. So if you are a finance major, if you are in technology, information systems major, accounting major, HR major, or even a marketing major, risk management major, whichever field that you belong to, whenever you are carrying out research, especially at the PhD level, you need to reflect on what does the scientific community that I belong to expect of me in carrying out research in this area. So that is very, very important. Next one, then the reason why it's important is that we need to make sure the research is reliable and it gives us accuracy. And with the reliability and validity of research also lies in the fact that another scientist within the discipline can pick it and say that, oh, if I do this research and I carry it out following the rubrics that he's pointed out and the protocol that he used, I might likely come out with similar results or something closer. And that makes it make sure that the research itself can have some credibility to it. Because when we look at it, he has satisfied everything that he's supposed to satisfy within the discipline. So he's getting these particular answers. Now, so when you carry out your research, always ask yourself, which discipline do I belong to? What are the rubrics of research in that discipline? What is expected of me in that particular discipline so that I may be a good ambassador of the discipline? Now, the next thing that I have to go to is organize. Organize here comes with the fact that irrespective of which research that we carry out, all the research that we carry out, depending on, irrespective of the discipline that we belong to, all have a method that they follow. All of them try to find answers to questions. All of them have to start with a topic in mind or a phenomenon in mind, and then the phenomenon, you question the phenomenon and you go to that search process of finding answers to that particular question that you have for the concern the phenomenon. So in this respect, it means that every research will always seek for answers. It will always try to ask questions to be able to generate those answers. And it will always try to establish a methodology of being able to carry out the risk and activity that will help us find those answers. So every research finds answers, even though the answer may be yes, maybe, or no, it's an answer. Or every research may also end up addressing a question. So the research will address a question and find answers. But that particular procedure is what we are saying that is generic to all. But even though it's generic to all, in carrying out those generic steps, we need to adhere to the principles that of the discipline that we belong to. So we find answers to questions, and that's the third pillar of why we do of what is research. But the next pillar is the questions. Now the questions as what we argue as is what we argue as being central to the research. If you look at the particular sentence I've written, the last word is questions. Research is an organized and systematic way of finding answers to questions. Without the questions there, the whole definition doesn't really hold because you're finding answers to what? What are you finding the answers to? But you're finding answers to questions. And that actually reiterates the point about researching or the search process. Now, why do questions matter? Questions matter because when we carry out research, we may have a phenomenon in mind, but it's a question that we ask that gives it direction. It's a question that we ask that gives its relevance or its focus. It's a question that we ask that gives us the drive or the purpose of the research. Without the question, we don't know where we are going or what we are seeking to contribute or what knowledge we are in what we are looking for. So the question itself gives the direction, gives the focus to every research process. So we argue that the research questions are central to the research, or the centrality of every research is the questions that are being asked. The centrality of every research is the question that are being asked. So why do the research questions matter? The centrality of every research, the question that is being asked exists because the research itself gains direction from the questions. And by direction, when I'm carrying out so when I'm carrying out a research, one of the things that we realize is that I need some direction. The direction comes from the fact that I need to have a topic in mind, a phenomenon. And that phenomenon leads, I question it. So by looking at my research question, I can identify the phenomenon I'm studying, and I can also identify where I'm going. So, and because I have a research question that is giving me some direction, it also give me the limits of what I want to look into. For example, you would notice that there's decline in the productivity in a particular public sector unit or agency, and you want to try and address it. Now, you can have a question that says that, what are the characteristics of productive employees, or why do productive employees suddenly become unproductive? Or you could also have a question on what are the economic factors that influence productivity of employees in the public sector? Or what are the non-economic, or what are the socioeconomic factors that influence productivity in the public sector? Now, all of the questions I've asked are related, but they are different. They are different research. All of them are related by a different research. So, but the type of question I ask tells me how far I collect data, what type of data I'm looking for. Now, a few years ago, I was working in Rwanda, and then we were in a particular hospital. That hospital was a private hospital, and we're evaluating the impact of technology on that particular hospital. We're studying telemedicine, delivering medical information, medical services, and medical care or healthcare over distance. So we're studying in one particular hospital there. One of the things that we realized is that when we got to the hospital and we looked at the wall of the hospital, at the reception, we could see a plaque there for best employee, and that best employee came from the IT unit. And I was surprised because I was asking myself that a whole big hospital with surgeons, professors, and all kind of experts here, the best employee for the month was coming from the IT department, and that means that the guy would have been quite phenomenal. The guy had done something quite phenomenal. That is why he was being given that particular accolade. Now, so if I wanted to study decline in employee productivity in such a hospital, I could even start by studying what are the key characteristics of productive employees. So I'll study that gentleman. But if I just want to do a study on what are economic factors that influence productivity, I have to interview almost everybody, or I have a broader. I'm not narrowed down to just the gentleman. I can ask other people for information concerning what I'm trying to look, the answers I'm looking for. So what I'm trying to emphasize here is that you, depending on your research question, your work will be different from, or differ from somebody's own. So it is not the topic that makes the work unique, it's the question that you're asking. The research question you're asking is what makes a person's work unique. Because if the research question will define the target audience, will define the boundary, what variables are you looking at, why are you looking into those variables, and how far do you want to go with, then it will define the phenomenon that you want to study. Then it will also establish the context in which the phenomenon will be studied in. So sometimes somebody is doing a study on Ghana. The Ghana is the context, or Ashanti region is the context, but the phenomenon may be about, he wants to study corporate branding, and all his ideas, all his concepts is trying to look at the impact of let's say, brand image on corporate branding, or cultural artifacts on corporate branding. Now, if he wants to study such a thing, you mentioned cultural artifacts, it tells you where you should be collecting the data from. It gives you an idea of what are the likely people who will be in his sample for data collection. So you need to appreciate the fact that the research question defines the phenomenon, defines the context, tells you the resources that is required, or it gives informs on the resources that are required. If your study is going to be done at Damango, it means that you have to go to Damango and collect data, and your questions are built around Damango. You have to go to Damango and to collect data, or you have to send somebody collect data and then receive whatever data the person has sent it to you, if the person collects it on your behalf. Now, in that scenario, whoever you are sending to go and collect the data, if you are going yourself, you are sending someone, these are all resources that have to be planned for and budgeted. So the research question can inform on the resources that may be required on the research, for the research. So you are going to give direction, it establishes boundary, it tells you the target audience, it defines the phenomenon, and then after defining the phenomenon, it tells you the context, it tells you the resources that are needed, and goes to planning and budget. So this is one of the reasons why we emphasize that the centrality of every research, the question that you're asking. Centrality of research is the question that you ask. Okay. So based on this, we go to the next phase where we start looking into the research process. Can I know whether anybody has any question? Okay. Either my students, you are extra smart students, or all of you don't understand what I'm saying.
Hello, bro.
Yes, please. Can you go ahead?
Some few questions. Yeah, you said research is to
Your
look for
voice
answers
is
to.
muffled. We can't hear you.
Hello, bro.
Yeah.
In your definition for research, you said it looks for answers for questions. Won't there be a situation whereby you look for solutions for problems?
Won't there be a situation that you lose for what?
Whereby you research to look for solutions for existing problems.
Oh, it looks for solutions for existing problems. Is that what you are saying?
Yeah, yes, please.
Yes, but it is out of your problem that you determine a purpose, and your purpose leads to your research objective. The research objective leads to your research questions. So whichever way it's going to be, every research question is coming from a research discrepancy, and the research discrepancy lies in or communicated or lies in the research problem, and the research problem belongs to a phenomenon which is explained in the research background. Okay. So, and that's what I'm going to. The research process itself is a step-by-step process of creating and carrying out a research project. So because research itself is a step process, we need to have some direction. So every research question in research is in the research area, every research question will always tell us which is the research topic that we are trying to research on. Some topics are broad, some topics have subtopics that you are looking into. For example, if I do my study on female entrepreneurship in the automobile industry, what I'm doing is that my study is on entrepreneurship, but I'm looking at a sub-theme called female entrepreneurship. So sometimes some people's study may be on the sub-theme, not necessarily on the major theme. And then you develop the right question to ask. Then after that, you design the study to collect the data and analyze the data. And then you interpret the data and then you inform others. So inform others like you write it out. Now, if you look at it in terms of our UG audience, this is what is expected for you for a PhD. So I want to show you your future so that you understand it before we actually finish session one. Your future looks like this, that you're writing a long essay or thesis that looks like this. So preliminary pages will come. Then you go to chapter 1 where you do your introduction. You identify the business phenomenon you want to study and why it is important in your research background. Then to lead you to a research problem. In the research problem, you are trying to look at the discrepancies in current literature to be able to substantiate your arguments. Okay. Then you go to literature, you go to from a research problem, you go to a research purpose. That will tell us that out of the research problem, you have defined a direction for the study called the research purpose. From that direction, you have to be able to break the purpose down into different objectives so that they can become incrementally achievable. So you then go to objectives. So objectives are linked to the purpose. Then out of the objectives, we interrogate the objectives or we question the objectives to develop what we call the research questions. So you have here being the purpose, objective, questions, and then you go to significance of the study where you tell us why the study is important and who are the potential people who may benefit from the study. And then from there, you go to a synopsis of chapters where you outline the chapter out. You tell us the chapter outline. From there, you go to literature review. Literature review tells us the review of the past literature, and then you use that to explain the key concepts in the area, and then you establish gaps that are of relevance to your study. Then you go to the theoretical foundations or foundation and conceptual framework. Now, this one, we expect you to review the underpinning theories of the concept you are choosing or the multidisciplinary concept you have chosen, and then develop a conceptual framework. What's a conceptual framework? Conceptual framework is a suggestion on what you think could happen or could occur. And so most often the conceptual framework is a concept framework where you put certain concepts together and suggest. Okay, So from there, you go to, oh, I've left one, your methodology. Okay, it's there. Okay, you go to context of study. Now, the context of study is tells us where is the study taking place, which location, which industry, which institution. So you have to give us an overview. Sometimes, in fact, quite a number of times, the PhD is not going to be marked by you. It may be marked by somebody who is an external examiner, who just is not even a Ghanaian. And he has no idea about the context of Ghana. So you need to explain the context of the study, where the study is taking place, who it may affect and who may not affect. So that gives a good picture. At the end of the day, you get a very good picture of where the context of the study exists. Now we have had situations where PhDs examiners have written that they don't know, have an understanding, any background information about the town that the person is saying that he's collected data from. So this is where you get opportunity to give us an overview of the study's context. If you are in an industry like the automobile industry, give us the overview of the automobile industry in Ghana, and then narrow down to the organization you want to try and do your study on. Then from there, you go to research methodology, where you present how you are going to answer the questions that you found in established in chapter 2 and 3. Now, you start with the philosophy, drawing from what the tenets of research that Professor has taught you. Then you move on to approach. Approach has to do with whether you are trying, what kind of data approach are you going to use? Are you going to use qualitative data methodology, qualitative methodology, or you're going to use quantitative methodology or mixed methods? So this also comes. Then you go to the strategy. Strategy may tell us whether you are doing survey, ethnography, different, all the strategies have got what they link to. So survey is much more for quantitative work. Then you have the sample you have to choose from the population. Now, sometimes some lecturers tell students not to write the chapter 4, that's the content of study, and add it to the sample discussion here by giving us a background of the sample or the town before you go to the sample. So that one may come to 5. 4 may come to 5. Then from there, you go to your data collection procedures and data analysis and ethical considerations. So from that one, we'll then move on to the presentation of our results. What do we find? And in the case study, that if we did a case study or case studies. Then later, we will analyze to determine the preliminary findings. Now, analysis and results are quite different. Results itself is the raw data that you pick from the customer or from the citizen or from the respondent. The analyzed data starts from the fact that you start categorizing the data. So as soon as you start categorizing the data, male, female, you are starting analysis. Okay, but we expect you to go deeper and do a more thorough analysis. Then you got discussion. Discussion is when you compare the findings of your study to the respect to the literature. Okay. Then you from there, your discussion, you try to compare what you have been written in the literature with what is in the findings. Then from there you go to the conclusion, where you have to revisit your research questions and framework, assess the implication to the research practice and policy. References and appendices. Appendices are usually used for your research questions and then your research protocols, evidence of obtaining ethical clearance. All of these things will come in appendices. I would advise you that as you go progress in your own work, by year 2 or year 3, start applying for your ethical clearance because it takes time. Now, this is how the preliminary pages look like, and according to graduate school, the current graduate school handbook. So you start with the cover page, then there's a title page, which is inside the cover page. Then there's a declaration, abstract, dedication, acknowledgement, table of contents, list of figures, and okay. So from here, this particular outline you see here, please don't make mistake and do other something apart from this. Most of the students do that and then they get penalized for it. Graduate school expects us to follow this particular structure. Then I'm not talking about the chapter 1, I'm talking about preliminary pages. Then chapter 1 then will come and chapter 2 will also come chapter 3 up to the end. Okay, so that's about what we do. I see some hands lifted up, raised up, so I will answer those questions and then show an example of a sample thesis. Gilbert.
Thank you, Prof. Please, I want to find out, I heard that you could also do the PhD by publication instead of the manuscript. I want to find out how true this is and what the difference is.
Oh, it's true.
Thank you.
It's true that UG has PhD by publication, so you have to publish. Actually, I think you have to publish a minimum of 2 or 3. Sorry, publish a minimum of 3 in journals, reputable journals in your discipline, and it's something that I myself not had a student. But I work with one of the students I work with has done it in the marketing department before, so it's possible. I've not had a student who has done that before, so I just want to put the disclaimer out there. But one thing that they do is that they also carry out research just as you also carry out, and then when they put the chapters together, the chapters is supposed to link to addressing the research objectives. So one objective may lead to one paper, one objective lead to another paper, another objective lead to another paper. But the papers themselves should have been accepted for publication before you can submit the thesis, so it can delay you. It can delay you.
Okay.
But that is why you need to start early. But the university is now going for a policy. We are now discussing it. A policy that everybody is supposed to publish. Like in the Department of MIS, you have to publish at least a book chapter or a conference paper before you can even think about submitting. So the earlier you start, the better. And that's one of the reasons why you saw that some of you are published in the first semester. When I taught you, I pushed you to publish. So you have been able to publish. And in this class too, I push students to publish. And I'm always writing books. So there's opportunity for students to contribute book chapters to the book. But let me just answer your own. So everyone will be on his own, but the structure is very different. So the person may have an introductory chapter that will establish why he's doing the study and then to lead to the objectives. Then after that, you have he may, I'm showing you one approach. The student may end up showing each paper. All the papers will come. The first paper will come addressing the then. So the paper will come from beginning to end, show the methodology and then the analysis to the end, and to finish. Then another paper will come, and another paper will come. Then there will be a concluding chapter that will bring all of them together. That's one approach. The other approach is the student will write at the chapter 1, have a literature review chapter, have a theory chapter, but the theory chapter will show you that they are leading to 3 different papers. Then have a methodology that will describe all the different methodologies that were used for all the 3 papers. Then have analysis that will be 3 analysis, like for each of the papers, and then conclude in the final part. Do you understand? So each analysis will address each of the questions.
Okay.
Good. So those 2 are allowed.
All right. Thank you,
I
Prof.
supervise a PhD in public health, and my student began by doing something like that. He was being paid, he was sponsored. But later on, she had to switch back to monograph because she only got one or two papers ready. And then she had to swap back to monograph. So you have to be very careful if you are not able to get all your papers accepted and you want to finish. You see, like a catch-22, your papers are not being accepted and you want to finish. In the past, the rule was that the paper should be submitted and be under review. So whether it be accepted or not was okay. So the student to just do it and then get it submitted to the journal, then he gets come and submit. But that does not mean that the student may end up finishing. So we have stopped that. I think now the rule is it should all be journals. So there's no, if you are going by publication, it should all be journals. And all the journals should have been accepted before you can submit. That's what I think. So you can check from the graduate handbook. Okay. But if you want to do something like that, you and your supervisor have to discuss like the time you're in first year or you're ending of first year, around this time. Because the journey is long. It takes you about a year to get a paper accepted. So you need the journey can be quite long. And then the papers have to be very strong. You can't just do any paper And because so far as it was accepted means that you are doing a good thing. If the paper is weak. I've seen somebody who has gone by publication and they told them the papers are weak. They were not going to give him the PhD. In fact, it was torn between the one person said fail, one person said pass. So you had to bring a third person who also then said pass before the person could pass. Because the papers were weak.
Wow.
So you have
Well
to
noted, Prof.
So your supervisor has to, you and the supervisor has to discuss. I'm not advising, I'm not saying that don't publish. I am the person who promotes publishing before you can even submit your thesis. Okay, so this is a sample thesis. This is just Budu, one my former student. He won the Vice Chancellor's Award for Best Thesis in Humanities. So you can see that this is a very good thesis itself. And I Joseph went through a lot under me before he could actually produce this thesis. So you can imagine.
Wow.
Okay, so I can say that to some extent, by God's grace, I produced an award-winning thesis through my student. Okay,
congratulations.
So I hope it means that those of you are checking my credentials and I should be able to teach you. I hope that will satisfy you. Okay.
Sure.
So this is the title cover. The title cover doesn't have the University of Business School inside, so please check it very well. So it goes on. I asked Joseph. He said he will share the chapter 1 with you. So later I'll send the chapter 1 to all of you for you to look at it. The preliminary page into chapter 1. He's still publishing from the work, so he's not made the whole work available. But at least we can go through it on the screen. Then, so this is the one I said. This is the title cover, the one that will be bound. This is the title page, which is inside the work. Inside the. So when you open the book, this is what you see. Because he did it PDF, I think something's moved. This is the October 2020 is supposed to be on that page, the previous page. So the declaration currently, graduate school says that all of the things should be on the same page. So the signature should be on the same page. This is before he submitted. So I'll sign it if I was not going to sign. So that's why you see first name has not answered, signature is not there. But all of them have to sign. That's why you have to do the politics very well. Some of you don't do the politics well. Your first supervisor has to sign before your second supervisor. If you go and I've seen a PhD student who went to the second supervisor and signed. The first supervisor said he didn't sign. It became a very big issue. Say that how can you I supervise you, then you go and give the second one to sign before I who is the lead supervisor doesn't sign. Then he took the work. He said, okay, there were three supervisors. The second and third signed, and he had not signed. So he took the work and then reread the work, found so many mistakes, and made the guy wait for another 3 months. So manage the relationship very well. It's a relationship. It's not just. I've seen some theses that are not as good, but the supervisor made them submit, and then somehow, by God's grace, the guy passed. I'm not saying that you always pass. By God, it's just some people pass by. If you go to Vivers, you see some people pass just by a scratch. Some people also pass by their neck. Somebody passes it, they don't touch his work. Somebody also passes, you say that this work, you, the person even listening, say the guy should fail. but the guy person has passed. There's so much politics in this thing. So please be very careful and manage your relationships very well. The lead supervisor and then the rest of the supervisors. Okay. So the abstract should be 4 pages. So that's it. I think the page, as he said, the thing kept on moving. So sorry that you see that some pages are just moved on to the now one. Then dedication. Please, he dedicated it to his university. Please dedicate it to somebody dear to you. His university is dear to him. Then the acknowledgement. My PhD supervisor said that if you write a very short acknowledgement, it shows that you didn't even talk to other people who helped you in the work. So the first paragraph, he acknowledged his supervisors, and then his wife, and then later on the other people in the side. Then some people also acknowledge the course mates. I saw somebody who wrote that. What did he write? He wrote that there's not much space. I could have written all your names, but I moved out to it was only one paragraph, like up to here. They were saying, so where and all here was blank. So why didn't you just write their names and say that there's so much space? So this is how.
Oh, Lord.
Hello, Prof.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've heard in some circles that in writing acknowledgements, you don't acknowledge God and things like that in academic
Please, you have to do
work.
one year. This is an award-winning thesis. There's one day you can do that.
Okay.
Me, I'm looking at the award-winning thesis. I don't know about that thesis. So, the award-winning means that graduate school is also read it and they say that they want to give the award to this person. So,
Yeah.
you can look at it yourself. But this is not the final one which was submitted. This is before final, so they may see some mistakes in it. So this is the outline as I showed you earlier. Background, problem, purpose, objectives, questions, significance, and then the synopsis. Then he reviewed the chapter 2, he reviewed the literature, then he brought theoretical foundations and research framework. You see what I said. But some supervisors make you split them. It's possible. In my PhD in Manchester, my theoretical foundation was very different from my conceptual framework. So I had 3 literature reviews. So if my PhD is available among the MIS students, they can share it with you, you can see it. So you can see that there are differences in approach. So if you split it again, that means that you end up having about 9 chapters. If you split the theoretical foundation from the research framework, the methodology, then you see the way the context is. The context comes after the methodology. Sometimes some supervisors make you put the context before the methodology. Some supervisors also make you put the context as part of the methodology. So please, always know the supervisor who has supervised you and then what is done in your department. And all I'm teaching is I'm trying to be very generic, but there are things that are very different and specific to departments. So look at what happens in your department. Then chapter 6, he presents his case, analysis. You see, his own analysis, discussion, findings are in all one chapter. Because he's a critical realist and we don't like splitting them because we analyze as we collect the data. So we put analysis, discussion, findings as together. Some supervisors have the study case study as one or the results as one, analysis as another chapter, discussion as another chapter. So you have 3 chapters alone. I've seen some supervisors who do that. Please don't go and say that Probatin say we don't do that. Listen to what your supervisor is saying. If it comes as I say, I don't even know you. I will say I know you. I've not even seen you before. Anyway, then you have got the last chapter being the chapter 8, the summary conclusions. Then you have got the appendices, which has got every appendix should include your interview guide or your questionnaire. And he has the resulting publication. So these are publications that he published. Then this one he just submitted it. So this is a book chapter, a conference paper, and then a working paper. So he had even done more than what is required. So he had done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this one he had just submitted it. So let's drop the last one. So he had done 5 before he submitted. So you that you have not done anything. I'm not saying if you have not done it, you can't submit. But some departments insist that you do something. Do you know, it's very difficult for an external examiner to fail you if you are published from the work. It's very difficult. Because you are, especially if you are published in a very good journal or good conference. It's not all conferences that are good. Some conferences are just walking around Ghana and you just go and just greet your friends and chat with your friends and smile. Yeah. So those are not the conferences. Always look at the conferences are ranked. So look at the leading conferences in your area, the one which the society that you belong to. Every discipline has a society. Association of Information Systems is the one for MIS. Marketing has marketing, Association of Marketing Science, and Association of Academy of Marketing. Then there's also Academy of Management, which all business people can belong to. So please know that this is the associations in your discipline. I'll talk about those things later. Okay, so what you do make sure that you actually try and publish before you submit, because you are testing the work. That's another person beyond your supervisor has seen value in your work. That's what we are trying to do. By testing your work, by sending your work outside there, you are letting your work be tested by others. Okay, so let's go back to our slides. Okay, so now you understand that. And the preliminary pages, as I mentioned, this is a snapshot of it. Cover page, title page, declaration. Both the supervisor and the student sign on the same page. In the past, if you look at past thesis in the business school, you see that the supervisor signs under certification and the student signs under declaration. Now, graduate school says no. All of you should sign on the same page so that you all agree that this work is coming from all the 3 of you or all the 4 of you. So that's why it's now the lead are very, very particular. You don't let the work go if they have not signed. Yeah. Okay. Then chapter 1 comes. So I just show you how the 2 chapters look like. The 2 sections look like in a snapshot. Now the research process, from what you have seen, the research process is different from the research design. The design is the methodology, how you are going to collect data, analyze the data. Is in the design. It's a subset of the research process. Now, when you start the research, one of the things you should think about is the fact that it's an iterative process. There's nothing like I finish chapter 1, I will never come back to it. You until the day you submit, you can even go back in chapter 1. You can even go back and change your research question. Even the title can be modified. But after your title has been approved by the department, by the university, if you are modifying it, you need to let graduate school know. Because if you're not very careful and you modify, you go then graduate school tells you they have modified it, they can worry you. They've said this is a different thesis. So please, when your thesis get accepted, and there's something we call in the in UG we accept it's termed as thesis title approval. There's a time that maybe 6 months or 8 months to the time you submit your thesis, all the thesis titles have to go for approval. Sometimes a year before, depending on some department, they like to do it a year before. So your supervisor will submit your thesis and and then your potential examiners, so that all of it is approved ahead of time. So when it's approved, when it's getting closer, you can be able to submit. So the flexibility, you should know that when you start the research, you have a topic, a question. Sometimes when you go to the field, certain things can change. That may let you come back to come and change your question and change your topic. So some students, in fact, are in the iteration of topic to design. They keep on going back forth. They back and forth because they start collecting data and they realize that the data they collected has nothing to do with the questions that they answered. They want to answer. So they have to go back because you see, it's a 4-year project. If you spend 2 years trying to write the chapter 1 and 2, the topic and the literature review part, by the time you get to the field in your 3rd year, the field has moved away from the topic that you chose. So what you chose to do in a year or two, a year ago, is not relevant anymore to the people in the field. So the phenomenon has changed. So you have to go back and change. So always in the MIS department, for example, those who are under my supervision, I encourage that at the time you're doing comprehensive, go and test your idea that you want to try and do, or you're doing experiential, go and test your idea. You have a topic, you have written a research proposal, which has been accepted, go and test it, go and collect some data, check whether the data, the questions you're asking and the data that you want to collect, they even exist. I've had students who they start collecting data and realize that the phenomenon doesn't exist in the field. It's just in the textbook. Or Ghana is not that mature in Ghana, so you cannot do a study in that area. So it is really linear, it's more cyclical. And you also need to have a best eye view of the process. What do I mean? We're doing a study in Medina market. We're looking at Kaneshi and then the Medina market. We're studying a market team and how they use mobile phones. And when we're collecting the data, I didn't know that you need to carry money on you and be shopping because the market woman is spending time to talk to you and you're not buying. So it wasn't my budget, and I was there with the student collecting data, and the women were telling us that we should go because if you want to collect data, you should buy. But if you buy, they'll sit down with you and talk. So you realize that if you don't have a best eye view of the project, as soon as you choose your topic and your question, ask yourself that this question I'm asking, is it potentially a quantitative question or qualitative? Does my supervisor like quantitative or does he like qualitative? Or does my supervisor can embrace both? Sometimes some supervisors are purely qualitative. So when they come to you, come under their tuition, they'll tell you that, please, we are going qualitative. So I know somebody who has a degree in accounting, has a master's in accounting and information systems and other things. And then he came to do a master's, strong quantitative person. He was given a qualitative supervisor. The supervisor said qualitative. The guy had to learn the qualitative and finish. Since he finished, he put a qualitative down. He doesn't publish qualitative anymore. He published quantitative and he has published in top tier. He has closed the qualitative. The qualitative was just giving my PhD. After that, I closed it. But he can appreciate qualitative work, but he doesn't do qualitative. Because he's a chartered accountant, his mind is very quantitative in thinking. But the supervisor he had was qualitative. So please, there's also the politics of managing that part. The whole PhD is politics. It's politics. Please. The politician.
Hello, Doug.
Yes, please.
Please, can I ask a question?
Yes, please ask the question.
So with the example you are citing, that the guy is quantitative bias, but was assigned a qualitative supervisor. In that situation, can't the students actually write to the committee to change the supervisor for him?
When you are coming in, how did you enter? You
Okay.
when you come in, how did you? How were you? How did you get in?
I spoke to a few lecturers who are willing to supervise me.
Thank you. The word is willing. Then you come in and say that now you are unwilling to work with them. So the other people who are willing, who are willing to work with other people should stop supervising the other people, and all of a sudden come and supervise you.
Well, things change.
Don't you realize that a lot of students are applying? The person chose you over another person. Now you come in, you don't want. Now his quota for the year, you are reducing that quota.
Okay.
And if the person is a senior colleague, like I am a full professor right now, and you come and say you are not coming to, who among the junior ones will pick you? Because you know that, hey, now you are going against prof and you are going to.
There's so much politics
they all be watching.
around it.
Me, I may not have any problem, but I'm talking about the seniority will even scare other people. Because at the end of the day, what if you listen? What if you finish and he then becomes your examiner? You end up going for extension for your PhD. So I advise you that if you are willing to go for somebody, then be willing to be supervised by the person. Because the PhD is about supervision relationship, and you enter through the supervisor. So you don't enter through the supervisor and then come around and say that now that you have arrived, you want to buy a new car. You want to change from this VW to Toyota because Toyota has assembled a unit, assembling units here. Okay,
Ghana.
Go to Toyota. When you finish and you want to drive the car, you come for the keys from VW be sitting down. Anyway, so
thanks so much. Thanks so much.
I'm advising you that be realistic. This thing is a political game, so be realistic. And don't expect magic to happen. It doesn't mean that people have not people have not complained for them to change the supervisor before. Please hold on. I'm being called from the department, so let me just pick a call. Okay, so the next thing that you had a question earlier. I think I've addressed your question, unless somebody else has another question. So let's quickly look at the different types of research. Okay, Portia, please, you can go ahead. Portia, can go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, hello, Prof.
Yes, please.
Hello. Yeah, Prof, please. In case that maybe one of your research questions is on quantitative and your supervisor is qualitative, as you were saying, now how are you going to reconcile that? Just one of the research questions. Like, so you may pose 5 research questions, and maybe the first research question address the first research question is quantitative, and your supervisor is not inclined in quantitative. How are you going to reconcile? Thank you.
Okay, you answered yourself in the question, so I don't know why you're asking the question. Anyway, number one, you said the supervisor, so I don't know which of the supervisors you're talking about. The whole thing is that there's a lead supervisor, and then there is the committee. The lead supervisor then sets up the committee. So, for example, I, Professor Boateng, I've taken you that I want to supervise you. I then look at what you want to do, and I tell you what I think you should do. And I tell you the kind of questions you should answer. Now, two things can happen. I can either be very strict and say that follow what I'm saying, or I can be very, very flexible and say that, okay, we will look at this, we'll look at that, and we'll also answer this other question. But then I am not good in question the way we answer question 3. So I'm bringing, let's say, I'm bringing Dr. Dawson from South Africa to come and join the team. Or I'm bringing another professor or from maybe linguistics to come and join the team. So I set up the team and I justify why all the members are there. So, for example, 2 years ago, or a year ago or 2 years ago, I chaired a PhD seminar for one of the people who finished in public admin. The first person was, the lead supervisor was Professor Domfe. The second supervisor was Professor Dateba. The third supervisor was, I think, Dr. Boateng, and the fourth supervisor was somebody else, I've forgotten. Now, what I realized is that the study became quantitative, and it had HR and public admin. So the quantitative part was handled by Dr. Dateba, but the idea that you belong to quality public admin was led by, and making sure the public admin is what you are going to get your PhD in, was led by Dr. Professor Dunfe and then Dr. Boateng. So here is Professor Dunfe is the one who, by looking at the students' work, was able to put up a very good committee to help the student. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, Prof.
Good.
Yes, Prof.
So it will be very, very funny for you to say you have some type of question that you can't answer. You want to do quantitative. If you want to do quantitative, supervisor says no quantitative, and he is not going to bring anybody to join the team in quantitative, then you are on your own. You can't actually bring quantitative into it. But if you fail in that part, you have failed. Okay, I've answered your question.
Yes, Prof.
Now let's look at the type of research. The type of research can be looked at from different dimensions. I will not go into too much detail in this because I want to end up running up in the qualitative research part. So the types of research, we can look at it from who is going to use the research, why we are carrying out the research, and then who is carrying out the research, who is going to use the research, why we are carrying out the research, and who is carrying out the research. Now, and then when the research was carried out. So let's start from who is going to use the research. There are two audiences for research. The first audience is the scientific community. The second audience is the politicians and then practitioners and policymakers. Now, the first audience, the scientific community, the focus of the scientific community is that you should look, they look at the rigor of arriving at the answer, not just the answer. They look at the rigor of arriving at the answer. So process is important on the methodology, satisfying the principles in HR, satisfying the systematic procedures in, satisfying the procedures in finance systematically is what is important to them, not just finishing the study. So most of us in doing our PhD rely in the pure research or the basic research. But the applied research is what we do as consultancies, like the policy research and then the practice research, like social impact assessment, monitoring and evaluation, M&E research. All of them are in applied research. So most of you see a professor or a lecturer, or even one of you here, maybe you do research in the pure research to get your promotion or to get a job as an academic. Then you do your consultancies as applied research. So most of us are going to be doing the pure research if we go into a scientific discipline, work as a scientist in a university or a social scientist or a lecturer in a university. But if you want to be doing consultancy in industry, you'll be doing applied research. So those are the two differences that we have here. Then that's what the purpose of the study. We can actually look at it from exploratory study, descriptive study, and then explanatory study. There's also predictive studies, research, but the dominant one is exploratory, descriptive, and then explanatory. Now, all of them have their reasons for why we do the research. Now, for example, if the purpose of the study is to do exploratory, that means that we are carrying out research in an area in which little is known or not much has been done in that area for a particular context or a research site, or the topic or not how much has been done in that area and on that topic in that specific context, both of them. So it's either little is known about the area or little is known about the area in the particular, the one about the area, the topic. Little is known about the topic or the issue you want to study in, or the phenomenon in a particular context, like Ghana, or little is known about the phenomenon in general, or little is known about that context and little is known about that topic. So both of them coming together. Now let's take an example to explore the antecedents and outcomes of engagement with videos on social media platforms among Gen Z consumers. Now this is a very interesting topic. Now you have a lot of dimensions and you have what antecedents and outcomes. Well, antecedents mean that we're things that the precursors for engagement. The person is doing a study on social media platform. The sub-theme is trying to look at is engagement with videos. Social media has got text, it has got pictures, it has got videos. He has selected one dimension, videos, and he's doing engagement with videos. So he's trying to ask a question: why do people engage with videos, and how do people engage with videos, and what is the outcome of people engaging with videos? Those are the kind of questions you'll be asking there. Now, to make the study much more challenging, he's not studying it among everybody. He is narrowing down to a typical type of set of consumers. Now, there's something called generational theory. Generational theory categorizes society into different generations. So I've got a silent generation, the baby boomer generation, generation X, generation Y. Generation Y is the same as millennials, and generation Z. So he's more interested in looking at how Gen Z consumers interact with videos on social media platforms. He didn't mention any industry, he just mentioned social media platforms in general. So this is what he wants to explore because not much study has been done in that area. Now, in general, in Ghana, for example, we don't have much knowledge on generational studies. We don't do studies on comparing generational cohorts or the age groups. We don't do that much. Number two, we are now starting research on social media, let alone social media and videos. Number three, we are not done much on social media engagement. What we have been studying much more is social media benefits, social media impact. We're not looking at engagement on social media. So now a study that is looking at engagement, looking at videos, looking at social media, looking at Gen Z is really a welcome study. It's really a welcome study on all dimensions. Now, that same study that I'm talking about can be done by different people. So I'm going to use that one as an example to show you how different people from different disciplines will do the same, a similar study related to that. That's why I was telling you the centrality of the research is the question that is being asked. So now the first one, in general, we are trying to study social media platforms, and we are trying to study how Gen Z or generations behave on those platforms. So the second question I could ask is that, or the second type of study I could do is to examine antecedents and outcomes to online, or I think it should be of online health information seeking behavior on social media platforms among Gen Z consumers in Ghana. So now what are you doing here? You are looking at how people search for information on healthcare issues on social media platforms. By which people? Gen Z. So instead of just saying engagement, you're now narrowed down to a particular area, online health information seeking behavior. Number three, somebody is now looking at to examine antecedents and outcome of consumer purchasing intention of made in Ghana vehicles among Gen Y, Gen Z, and Gen X. So he's doing kind of generational comparisons that which people are more likely to buy made in Ghana vehicles. Gen Z, Gen Y, and Gen X. So that's what he's looking into. Now to examine antecedents and outcomes of citizen engagement, public admin with government through data platforms. So now looking at something on e-government or e-governance. How citizens engage with government through data platforms. So it includes radio and even phone. Now to examine the antecedents and outcomes of consumer use of emoticons. Emoticons are those icons that you click on to say I like, and then to show that or to express your emotion online concerning a product you are engaging with, or concerning a brand you are engaging with, or concerning an online information. So that could also be a research. But that one is looking at the different generation cohorts. To examine the antecedent outcome of consumer adoption of financial products, so the finance students we can look at like Gen Y, Z, Y, and X consumers in Ghana. So these are all coming together as exploratory types of studies because there's not much known about this in these areas. Okay. Now look at descriptive study. Descriptive study try to ask the question what and how. Because now we have examined, if you do exploratory, you are trying to examine what is occurring. And then here you are trying to find out what and how something occurs. But you are more specific about describing something which is more enduring. So here he says, what are the attitudes, an example, what are the attitudes of the community towards the community library? Now, this is attitude. Attitude is not something you can just perceive. You have to actually go there and observe. So that one has to do with going there to observe and interact with the people to be able to observe their attitudes. However, if I was doing an exploratory study, I could have said that what are the perceptions of the people concerning this? And you just try to gain insights. But when I go to attitudes, I need to spend some time and gain different behaviors. Or what are the living conditions in the farming communities in Ghana? So I need to be able to describe. The last part has to do with explanatory research, which has to look at going beyond the how to find out why something occurs. So not just how, but why is it occurring, so that we can be able to predict if it will occur again in the future. The researcher goes beyond merely describing the characteristics to analyze and explain why and how something is happening. Why and how do firms achieve value amidst the reported fierce competition in the microfinance industry? So that could be a possible question outcome from explanatory. So with exploratory research, the key variables are not defined. With descriptive research, the variables are defined, but the relationship between the variables are not defined. So those are the differences between the three. So if you look at descriptive research, somebody is asking here, what have been the trends in organizational downsizing over the past 10 decades, 10 years? Then the other one is more specific. Which of the two training programs is more effective for reducing labor turnover? So that's more about explanatory. Now, the question that somebody is asking in their minds right now is that, say, can there be a study that can do both exploratory and then do descriptive and then do explanatory? This question was asked by an undergrad one day when I was teaching. And I never thought about it, but I've come to realize that it's possible, because your first question could be exploratory. And then based on those questions and the findings from that question, you can then move on to a descriptive stage or move towards explanatory stage. Okay, so I hope you understand that key variables are defined, key variables are not defined, and key variables and relationships are defined. The last one, explanatory. Okay, is there any question before I move on to the approach of the research? Okay, when we look at the approach of the research, we are now discussing the three dominant ones: quantitative, qualitative, and then mixed methods. Quantitative research tries to explore variation between variable phenomenon. So if I'm studying something like class attendance, and then the grade somebody gets, and I try to come out with a hypothesis that the more class attendance you have, the higher grade you may obtain. That means that at the end of the day, I'm looking at the relationship between the two variables and I want to quantify. Okay. But the qualitative is not about quantification. Qualitative is more about exploring the meanings and attitudes and values people associate with a phenomenon in order to establish a better understanding, rather than to test or disprove or support or disprove a relationship, which that one is more of quantitative. So here we expect you to explain the phenomenon. So for example, if you look at the pen that is in your hand right now, that pen is currently a means to an end of writing what I'm saying. However, that same pen, if you are using it in the evening to look at your daughter's assignment or your son's assignment, what could happen is that after you have done the assignment with her, you can sign that you can attest the assignment was done by your daughter. So that one is a sign of responsibility. That same pen, if you go to the banking hall right now and you're accessing your money, it's also giving you access to your money. Or that same pen, if you give it to your president, you can sign amnesty for people and to release them from prison. So all of it, nothing has changed. Unless apart from the ink reducing a little bit, nothing has changed. What has been changed is the context in which the pen is used. Qualitative researchers are not more concerned about the pen, they are more concerned about what? The manner in which the meanings people associate with the pen, the meanings that people associate with the phenomenon that we are trying to study. That's what qualitative researchers are about. Now, mixed method research combines both the strengths of quantitative and qualitative. Quantitative, an example can be a researcher may ask, to what extent have students adopted mobile phones? So he wants to look at variation. Hypothesis, students who obtain a grade A never miss a class. Okay, so now you can see the relationship between a class attendance and the grade. Then qualitative, a researcher may ask, what is the working condition in the banking industry? So you may want him to write a story about that. What are the perceptions of traditional medicines among nurses? Okay, so the best method is saying that you're combining the strength of both. What are the type of primary schools in the city of Accra and the extent of their popularity in the city. Now, it's likely that the type of primary schools, you may even get it from the ministry in terms of the categorizations. Now, all then you have to do is to then do the next part, which is the extent of popularity. Okay. So we combine those two in one type of research, and we call them mixed method research. The last one has to do the time dimension of research. That means, yes, please.
Can we go back to the previous slides, please?
Yes, please. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
Jabba.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I hope you ask an intelligent question because you should know this by now.
All right.
This is Edward.
But Edward will ask before I do.
So,
okay, Edward, go ahead.
The qualitative research, the example you gave, can the same thing look at quantitatively? For example, the perceptions of traditional medicines among nurses, where you rather have some perceptions which you throw out to them to find out the number of people who fall within the different perceptions.
How did you get those initial perceptions?
Probably maybe based on existing literature.
Okay, so if you are doing exploratory, we usually don't, based on existing literature, we'll just capture. That's the problem of quantitative. Based on existing literature, we'll just capture what the literature is saying. It will not allow us to also find out what could be there and there is not captured.
Okay.
So people would like to do even a pilot qualitative first and check what the existing literature may give you plenty.
Yeah.
And check which of the ones that are there that they want to even look at, and then follow up with the quantitative. So that's why the research can be complementary to each other. One of them can be able to establish that these are the patterns that are occurring. Then the other one will check the dominance of the pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Right.
So I would have loved that if you are doing traditional medicine perceptions, you read the literature, but you have to also go and check qualitatively in Ghana, whether even what you found in the literature qualitatively pertains to Ghana.
Okay,
so what about the approach where you present a number of perceptions and give options to get what you may find that is different from what the literature is saying?
The question that I'm telling you that you didn't get is that if you are doing your study, it's not the question that just tells you whether it's quantitative or qualitative. Mm-hmm. But I'm just telling you that it's more about you. There are a number of things that influence a choice of approach. One could be the strength of the researcher. If you are strong in quantity or quality, that is one. Number two, the maturity of the issue. If the thing is not mature in the area, and even there's not much literature in the area, you are likely going to go qualitative. Mm-hmm. If the thing is even mature, and even for the context of Ghana, it's not very mature, you may rather start with qualitative and go to quantitative. You can jump the qualitative and go to quantitative, but you may narrow your views. That is why you see them doing the question and say that if you have other things, add. Then they put them a large set. Then they realize that the other things become plenty. And then what they did, they were getting very, very poor results. So that's why it's good to do a pilot. If the pilot tells you that don't do quantitative, don't go quantitative, then go to qualitative.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Prof.
Yeah. Then the last thing is the paradigm you belong to can also influence the way you ask your question and the method you choose. If you're interpretive, you can never go quantitative. So that means that you never go quantitative. And because you're going to analyze interpretively. Some of you don't think about what if I taught you last year. So you think they are sitting in different places, but they link together. Yeah, please, do you have a class after this?
Yes, Prof.
Yeah, you have a class at 1:30.
Yes, please.
Then you have to let me go ahead because I have another set of slides to go through. Okay, let me take the last question now. Go ahead.
All right, Prof. We've already seen that one of our questions can be exploratory for our research and then the rest can. But I'm struggling to see, or I'm wondering if at this level we can have a PhD work that is purely exploratory.
A PhD. I just did a viva for somebody's PhD exploratory. It was an excellent one.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Do you know? The exploratory doesn't make the work weak. It's your theorization that makes it weak, and your methodology.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now you are all staying at the face value of the issues. Let's go into the actual meat. Okay, so this one I won't go into detail. You can read about it more on for yourselves. The two differences between the main differences between the cross-sectional study and the longitudinal study. One is done over time, a longer period. One cuts across time. So surveys cut into time. So those one are more cross-sectional. If I take my questionnaire and I ask questions right now, even an interview, and I'm asking questions now about a point of time, I've done cross-sectional. But if I'm studying over time, where I can come and go back and I study over a period of years, or I can even study a span of years at one time, I'm also still doing longitudinal. But I advise you to go through the cohort and the time series. You can read on that one on your own, because it's pretty straightforward. Now let me get into the meat of what I wanted to talk about. So here is qualitative research itself. So what is it? Let's go into the detail, then you can understand what you're trying to say. I'm now jumping to chapter 6 of our work. Now, there's this story that we call the qualitative fruit story. There was once a man, there once lived a man in a country with no fruit. A scholar, he spent a great deal of time reading. He often came across references to, let me just do this. Every year I'll keep on keeping it. I'll say, good, let me just continue. Across references to fruit, the description entices him to undertake a journey to experience fruit for himself. So he didn't know what fruit was. He had said about fruit. He wanted to know what fruit was, what the fruit is. He went to a marketplace and inquired where he could find the land of fruit. After much searching, he located someone who knew the way. After a long and arduous journey, he came to the end of the direction and found himself at the entrance to a large apple orchard. It was springtime, and the apple trees were in blossom. The scholar entered the orchard and expectantly put off a blossom and put it in his mouth. He liked neither the texture of the flower nor its taste. He quickly went to another tree and sampled another blossom, then another and another. And each blossom, though quite beautiful, was distasteful to him. He left the orchard and returned to his hometown, reporting to his fellow villagers that fruit was a much overrated food. Now, what happened? This is coming from Halcom's Inquiry Parables in Patton. Patton is a qualitative book that you can read on your own, 2002. What happened to the scholar? You realize that the guy went there during springtime. It means that at springtime, it was flowers that were there, not the summer fruit, which was supposed to be there in the summer. So he ate a fruit, he ate a flower and thought he had eaten what? Eating an apple fruit. Okay. So you realize that his interpretation is based on his experiences, and that's what you see in qualitative research. Qualitative researchers study things in the natural settings, attempting to make sense of or interpret the phenomena in terms of the meanings people bring to them. Like what the meanings the gentleman brought to it was that it's supposed to be on a tree, but whether it was supposed to be round or it's supposed to be the leaf, he didn't know. So, but then he studied the thing. They studied the apple within its natural settings and took an example from there, took a sample from there and thought he had eaten an apple, but it wasn't it. So here we see the dimensions being the phenomenon, the natural settings, the meanings, and then the people. All these dimensions influence what qualitative research is. Qualitative researchers will try to understand a phenomena in their uniqueness as part of a particular context and the interactions that exist between them. So it's not just studying the phenomenon, it's studying the interactions the phenomenon has with the context. It's very, very important that you understand that. So when I asked that, what is the pen example I was using, and I said, what is the meaning of the pen to you? It is because of if you are a president and you are signing with that pen, what the pen means to you in terms of as the ultimate point of authority is very different from somebody who is at home and is signing an assignment for his son or his daughter that he has done, finished his homework. That's very, very different. So there are different interactions that could occur between the phenomenon and the context, and that could define what you're actually studying. So when you go out as a qualitative researcher, you are supposed to unravel the phenomenon, the context, and the interaction that exists between the context and the phenomenon. So let's break it down. The phenomenon, what is fruit? What is your understanding of fruit? That's what you're trying to look at. What is apple? How do you identify an apple? Where was the apple? It was in the natural settings. But when did he go there? He went there at a different time when he was not supposed to go there. Then what meanings exist concerning the fruit? What are the meanings that you have concerning the fruit? And by the time you use that meanings to look at the fruit, the meanings you had can then be reinforced or could be changed by what you may get out of it. So what factors influence these meanings, and then who has these meanings, and when did the person have these meanings? So qualitative researcher has to deal with these dimensions over time, and then try to understand all these dimensions that people bring to the research process. The phenomenon that you're studying, where is the natural settings the phenomenon is taking place, what meanings exist before the study, what meanings exist now, and then who are the people who have these meanings. Now, another definition says that qualitative research is an inquiry, or is an inquiry that is grounded in the assumption that individuals construct social reality. That you as an individual, you construct your own social reality, and in the form of meanings and interpretations. Okay, and that these constructions tend to be transitional and situational. I mentioned that earlier. Depending on the context that the person went in, the time he went in also influenced his choice. The time he went in, and then the context in which the thing happened. So you, the qualitative researcher, you are actually trying to construct social realities in the form of the meanings and interpretations and that exist, and the contradictions that also exist. But he also says that these meanings that you have are situational. They are based on what is maybe going on now, and they are transitional, that they can actually also change. Now let's take an example. What do you see here? All of you here. What do you see?
You see chairs.
You see chairs. Okay. Somebody say you see chairs. What else?
Queen Elizabeth.
Okay, see Elizabeth. Okay.
Power.
Different types of salt.
I see power.
So most of you say, some of you say you see chairs, some of you say power.
I see pictures.
Prof, I see Game of Thrones.
Somebody say you see Game of Thrones. Okay. Okay.
I see pictures.
Now you see how you are interpreting it. Meanings can be what? Situational is what you have established. All of you are giving it situational. What you know can influence how you interpret it. Somebody is saying Game of Thrones because maybe he likes watching TV series. So if you have seen the Game of Thrones thrown there. Now, what you are seeing here is that there are different chairs. Some chairs are reserved in the societies where the chairs have meaning. Some chairs, and we don't just sit because we find a chair. Our seat has a meaning. Every seat there has a meaning. The throne seat has a meaning. The other seats also have a meaning. Now, by seeing the queen there, it tells you that even the queen appreciates that all the chairs have got meaning. And then the queen may like to go to the highest one, but she's not sitting on it. She's just watching it. Now, in some societies, people do not sit until you cannot sit until something has been done, such as grace has been said. So even sitting is a privilege. Now, to be able to sit, you also need to internalize the taboos of the context, the culture, why we do what we do in our view and in meaning. So it doesn't mean that because you have seen chairs, you can sit on. It's not every chair that you can be sat on. It's not every chair that you are qualified to sit on. It's not every chair that we expect you to sit on. So even though you have seen chairs, you may have seen chairs, you have seen the potential functionality of a chair, may not be available and accessible to you. Okay, now you understand that. So let's continue. So we mentioned earlier that in qualitative research, we seek to describe something. So describe a variation. Instead of we predict a variation, we describe. We describe and explain relationships. Good. We describe individual experiences and describe group norms. In terms of method, qualitative researchers like to use a more flexible and iterative style of gaining and then gaining understanding of an issue, and also through the responses that people give you from the field, and then categorizing them, these responses, to questions. Now, there are about 4 different ways in which qualitative researchers use to collect data. They may use interviews, focus groups, observation, and then sometimes the interviews they carry out is just not one-on-one interview. They could either be in groups as a focus group discussion, or it can be in-depth as to do with the individual, sitting down with one person, go very deep to engage with the person. Now, the fourth one is, apart from interviews, focus group, and observation, the fourth one is textual. The text that the person has written can also become used for can also be used by the qualitative researcher as data. The text, your interviews, your social media information, your things published in documents and reports concerning you. Now, qualitative researchers, because they are interpreting people's meanings and capturing their meanings, they always have to be aware of their own biases that they bring to a research environment. The biases or experiences or personal interactions that you have had, and how it can influence your ability to make a sound judgment. So the researcher should be aware of his own orientations or biases or experiences before you carry out a qualitative research. You should be aware of these things. Now, the key features of qualitative research, the first one is that qualitative research, because our objective is to learn from the populace or the society, we need to be able to embrace the different perspectives and diversity that exists within the minds of our participants. So we take into account the viewpoints and practices of the field that are likely to be different, because we as human beings come from different subjective perspectives and social backgrounds. So our first thing is that appreciate that there is several subjective perspectives in every qualitative research, and that should guide us in thinking that means that in engaging our participants, we should be more open to encourage the diversity and learn from the diversity. Number 2, okay, let's look at an example first. Gender and micro small enterprises, the first one. I could ask the question, do you own an enterprise? But the answer could come as say, what do you mean by own? Are you referring to, do I make the key managerial decisions? Or am I the one who use my money to start the business? Or am I an investor into the business? So these kind of questions can come up. But do you own this enterprise? Can have several perspectives and subjective meanings, because the ownership itself has a fluid nature. The word ownership is fluid in its use in Ghana. People use it in many different ways. Okay. Now, I could also have received this particular gift, this particular enterprise as a gift or as an inheritance or as a partnership, but nobody's commenting on that one. But you realize that, so the ownership can go any way. So if you ask a person that, do you own this enterprise, it could have several meanings. And that's where qualitative researchers come in. Okay. But if you did it quantitatively, you would have asked them, which of these best describe? So the person just tick and go ahead. Now, qualitative researchers like to do studies in a naturalistic environment. So it's a naturalistic inquiry, means that we carry data in where the thing could have occurred or was occurring. Now, the idea is to study real world situations as they unfold naturally, than to be manipulative and then controlling. So naturalistic inquiry is very important. Then you have emergent design flexibility. Now, the qualitative researchers are open to adapting the inquiry as the understanding deepens or situations change. Okay, what does it mean? Qualitative research is open to adapting the inquiry. What do you mean by adapting inquiry? You have a questionnaire. As you get to the field, things might come up, and you may have to improvise or change the questionnaire to best fit the data that you want to be able to collect. So that's why I say that adapting to emerging inquiry, adapting the inquiry process. There was a time that I was collecting data from Star Life, and I went into their branch at Ring Road. And when I got there, I was using F-150, the Ford, and I parked it there. And then I told her I was looking for the IT manager. So when I got to the IT manager's office, I sat down. Will you believe that the IT manager went down? He is upstairs, so he went and opened the window, looked down, and then looked and saw the F-150 vehicle there. Then asked me a question that, "Oh, are you the one who bought the F-150?" I said, "Yeah, I bought the F-150." So, okay, come on, let's sit down and talk. Let's sit down and talk. I said, "Ah." So we are going to sit down and talk and connect because I bought F-150. But to tell you the truth, this F-150 car had actually given us a car trouble while we come. We had to push. And when we're getting towards their car park, we just stop pushing and we just park the car somewhere. But this, we had to push. One of the person collecting the data with, I was the lead researcher. One of my friends who owns a car company was the one who was actually helping me. So it was the car was for his father, and his father had given to him as a firstborn to help him to do his business. And he also we had to push the car, and but we went there. And the same car that we had pushed is a car which was getting fans, giving an audience for us to sit down. So we sat down. Then when we sat down, then I realized that I think the guy went to a school that I either went to or something like that. We had something in common through our education system. Oh, that one even made us jump question 1 and question 2, went to question 3. Because the questions about how old are you, we didn't even ignore all those questions. What are you doing in this job? And I went to the meat questions where I had issues to study, like the question that had to do with my variables. So when we finished, we're ending, then I asked him that, to be able to complete my study, I need to know your age when you joined the company. So there and there, emergent design flexibility took place. There and there. The guy is becoming friendly to you. He's asking the difficult questions that you will not have to deal with company issues you not like to answer. Ask him now before he changes his mind. So I asked those ones very fast, and I went back. So when we ended, and I changed, so I flipped the questionnaire. So qualitative research has to avoid rigid designs. Rigid designs. Okay. For example, another student that we're working with, he was doing something about accounting practices among SMEs. And the literature he was reading was saying that they are very poor accounting practices of SMEs. So he went with the premise of poor accounting practices. Go to some SME, and then that SME was excellent. In fact, excellent to the book. Everything was there. Books were in order. Everything was in order. They were not. It wasn't even there was not even any mistake. The guy got confused. Then should I ask the question on why are you not doing bad accounting practices? Because he was confused. He was looking for expecting more shortfalls for him to use as points of asking why they failed to do this. But the guy are doing everything that there's no failure here. So now he had to find a way of improvising a questionnaire to look at what makes you a good accounting firm. What makes you an SME adhere to good accounting practices? What makes an SME? What factors influence the SME to adhere to that? So he had to do emergent design flexibility. And when he came back, he had to change his research questions. Because at the end of the day, he realized that the data he's collecting is very different from what he had envisaged before he went to the field. Okay. Now, qualitative data also forms part. The primary forms of qualitative data are observation, interviews, audiovisual, and documents. So you should keep that in mind. Most of them, also you observe a lot. You do interviews, whether it's group interview or individual interview. You also use audiovisual, the Facebook, and all those kind of stuff that have the video you can describe. So far as you can describe them into text, you can use them as qualitative data. Then documents. Then qualitative studies also draw on a lot of historical and social and temporal context issues. So the context is very, very important. You should also, you as a researcher should also be very sensitive to the context. Some of the context may be historical. The thing happened, for example, you're talking to market women, and then you ask a question, then tell her, why is this in here? Then tell her in 2016, this and this and this. So the context itself, the historical context historical context influences your understanding of what you're trying to, the understanding of what you're trying to learn. So please don't just ignore certain things and say that you just want to know about now. There are social issues that are embedded in your questions. There are historical issues that are embedded in your questions. And there are things that may be happening just because of that morning. For example, you enter into the market and that particular morning, one of the entrances is closed. So you're all using one particular entrance. So there's a lot of traffic. So that is a temporal condition you want to see because there was an accident that's taking place and one door or one entrance to the market had been closed. If you go to write in your work that the market also only has one functional entrance, you are in trouble. That functional entrance you have seen is only because of that day, not because of everyday activity. So you need to be able to understand in the context what is a temporal condition, occurrence, instance you are seeing, or even a spurious one, something just occurred out of coincidence, not that is relatively enduring, or what is historical, has been there for some time and it continues to repeat itself, and what is something that is, what are the other things which are just socially driven, depending on what is happening in the society or how people are behaving. That is why it occurs. So you have got there's history, there is the social dimension, and also there's the time dimension about or whether it's enduring or it's a temporal or a coincidence or something that has happened out of the blue. Okay, so then the last part is the type of qualitative research. There are actually four key types that are matter for our work, but there's also another one, action research, which we'll talk about later. There's phenomenology, which has to do with describing one or more individuals' experiences of a phenomenon. Those of you who have heard of biographies and autobiography, they all fall under phenomenology. They are describing somebody's experience this here. Then you have also got ethnography. Ethnography has to do with describing cultural characteristics of a group of people to describe their cultural scenes. And this one takes time. It takes time, and I'll talk about that. Then the other one has to do with case study. Case study has to do with the fact that you do in-depth study to be able to understand a bounded system, a system that has a defined boundary. Okay. Then the last part has to do with grounded theory. Grounded theory research is that you have data you have collected from a phenomenon and you're trying to theorize based on that data. So that's what we call grounded theory. So that's the snapshot of them. But into detail, in terms of phenomenology, I've got two types. There's humanistic phenomenology and then there's transcendental phenomenology. The one that is humanistic likes to look at the text about somebody's lived experience, and which may include blogs, tweets, and documented accounts of experience. So a question that can come up in somebody's thesis is like, what are the doctoral student supervision experience as interpreted through their blogs, chats, and tweets? So I'm going to capture or harvest the blogs, the chats, and tweets of doctoral students and try to understand how their supervisory experiences. I know some of you are like that. Whenever you are angry, you go online and just chat and blah, 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 this supervisor, this PhD, So I'm going to study that one to be able to get a picture of what is it to do a PhD? What is it like to be supervised by a particular supervisor or supervised by a lecturer in the business school? So I can learn from that one. Okay. Then transcendental phenomenology describes the meaning of one or several individuals of their lived experiences of a concept or a phenomenon. It aims to describe the essence of their experience. So what is the experience of being supervised in a doctoral program at Lichen? So that when I'm capturing somebody's lived experiences verbatim from what the person is telling me. Okay. So most likely you could have somebody's biography coming from the transcendental part. Okay. Good. Ethnography is a qualitative research method that involves the description of people and the nature of a phenomenon. Researchers they carry out this research, you often tend to interact with the studies participants in their real world environment and then do a cultural description of what is happening there. For example, somebody trying to understand the nature of cybercrime and criminality in slum communities in Accra. Such a thing, you have to go and live there with the people and try to collect data on that area, and then try to understand the community and understand how the community influences cybercrime and how cybercrime also shapes the community. I had a student who was studying forestry policies, a mate who was studying forestry policies in Ghana, and he was doing his PhD in Denmark. So when he got to data collection, supervisor said he should do ethnography and spend 8 months on the field in some towns in Kumasi and the eastern region to try to understand whether forestation policies concerning forestation is being adhered to and how the people are living by it. The guy said no, he won't do ethnography. He abandoned the PhD. He said he can't go to sit in the forest with people for 8 months. He can't do that. So later on, when I asked him why he abandoned it, he said he changed the school, the university. I said, why did you abandon that one? He said, oh, I abandoned it because when you go to Denmark, he was doing business. He was buying cars, Holland, sorry. He was buying cars from them, bringing them to Ghana. So if he goes to stay 8 months in a village to do data collection to affect business, I said, hey. So because of that, you change the university. Yes, he said he changed the university because the department he joined, everybody does ethnography, and he was not prepared to do ethnography. So I'm just telling you somehow the ways that some of the PhDs, how they behave throughout their PhD program. Some of them take very interesting risk. They may even abandon a PhD because they disagree with their supervisor. Anyway, so please keep this in mind. If you want to do ethnography, get ready to spend more time in the field. Case study is a study of a bounded system. The bounded system is what we call the case. Now, a bounded system is a system that has a defined boundary, either by a group activity, an event, a process, a person can even be, a person's experience can even be a bounded system. For example, studying the leadership of somebody as the president of a particular company, and you're looking at his term, the time that he was in power or the time that he was a president, his leadership style. So you write a case study based on it. Okay, so a case is a bounded system. Usually, people who do case studies are trying to understand the how question and the why question. The how question, or they want to describe what is happening, and they sometimes want to explore why it is happening. So the how question and the why question. Now, other people say that case studies are a microscopic evaluation of selected social factors. So somebody wants to study poverty and livelihoods in the community, looking into that, or ride-sharing services like Tango and Uber, or leadership in organizations, I just said, in their real-life context or natural settings, as a strong test of prevailing explanations or ideas to refine knowledge. Okay, so a sample case, when we get to chapter 6 of our text in the future, we'll be looking at this. But this is a sample case of a tomato retail trader who sells tomatoes by use of mobile phone, and she works with somebody called Jane. So the story is written about her. The first part of the story tells you the background of the person and establishes why the person, the premise of the case. The second paragraph tells you the activity that the person is the activity that is taking place in the use of mobile phones. The third paragraph is a quotation that substantiates the fact that the person who wrote the case went to the field and collected data. So sometimes when you look at a case, there are building blocks. If those are not there, we tell you your case is not satisfied all the dimensions of validity and the reliability. So the case itself should have the case background, so that the person who was not there when you're collecting data can understand the context in which the study was done. And that is what is done in the first paragraph. Before you go to the second one and then the third one. The last one is grounded theory. Okay, Kofi, please, let me just finish with grounded theory and then I'll answer your question. The last part is grounded theory. Grounded theory means that we are collecting data. After collecting the data, we sit down and we focus on the data and derive theory from it. So what emerges, what explanation or theorization can we make out of the data in relation to the phenomenon? When we do analysis of data, I'll explain this into detail. This is just an overview class, so I'm just touching on a few things. So the person has data, and all he does is that he has the core phenomenon he's studying. So you can ask yourself, okay, this phenomenon I'm studying, what are the causal conditions from the data I have? What are the strategies that enable them to address the causal conditions? And what are the consequences? So I can look at antecedents and then consequences, or antecedents and outcomes, and use that one to be able to theorize or come up with something that I can be able to use as a theory based on the phenomenon I'm studying. So some people do this. I had a PhD student who nearly did grounded theory. He's collected a lot of data and wanted to sit on it and just theorize based on the data. But I told him that he wanted to do that because the theories in the area of study he was carrying out the research were very few. And the phenomenon he wanted to study, there was no one specific theory to study it. So he wanted to go a grounded theory approach. But I asked him a question that look at the department you are in. Has anybody done grounded theory and passed? Has any of the external examiners marked grounded theory? Our current examiners have not marked grounded theory before. You will be the first person. You can either go this way or that way. So please, when you finish your PhD, you can try grounded theory. But for now, let's do something which we know that you can be able to do it well and finish. That the person is the Joseph that who I'm telling you has got the Vice Chancellor's Award. When Joseph began, he was very ambitious and wanted to do grounded theory. But after collecting a lot of data, we had good data. But I told him that, look, it's a risk that we are taking. If you go that route, and then the examiners don't understand it very well, you end up paying the price, not because you didn't do a good work, but the examiners mark you down. So please, don't just jump into a new buzzword or something that is interesting just because you want to do it. But understand that you try to make sure that you understand that area and the politics that surrounds it. Okay, so you ask your question now, what were in this particular scenario, we were trying to study how do women micro entrepreneurs handle multiple responsibilities. So we ask our first question, what is the phenomenon? We are trying to study women micro entrepreneurs and their multiple and their behavior in managing responsibilities. Okay, so what influenced that process to occur? What influenced that phenomenon or whatever we are trying to study to occur? What actions were done in response to that process? So, first of all, the question then is that why do the micro traders handle multiple responsibilities? What are the antecedents to the multiple responsibilities? Then what strategies did they use to be able to manage their multiple responsibilities? Then lastly, what is the outcome of managing multiple responsibilities? Then after that, I can build my theory from the answers I get from those ones. So I look at the phenomenon, the causal condition, the strategies, and the consequences. This is one approach of doing grounded theory. There are different approaches that exist. Okay. So in practice, qualitative researchers embrace the idea of multiple realities and then that are subjective, with the intent of unearthing and reporting these multiple realities. That is their focus of their study. The researcher is not independent from what is being researched. So he himself has to be aware of the biases that he brings to the research. Knowledge in the qualitative research is context and time dependent. And it means that you have to appreciate the context specificity of the research and how it can be influenced by time too, because as time goes, things can change. Knowledge is established through the meanings attached to the phenomena study, which is communicated by the people we are studying. Qualitative research is also inductive, emergent, and is shaped by the researcher's experience in collecting data, analyzing data. If you're not very experienced in collecting data, analyzing data, you can make mistakes. That's why it's good to know the principles of qualitative research in your philosophy that you belong to. Those who belong to interpretive, there are principles there. Those who belong to realism, there are principles there. Those who belong to critical realism, there are principles there. So you should know the principles that will allow you to carry out qualitative research within the philosophy that you belong to. The research questions can change or emerge. We talked about that. That you should emergent design flexibility. That you should be able to change as you work on it. Thank you very, very much. So this is the centrality of the PhD research. I'll discuss it next time that we meet. But this is what I expect you to do. I'll collect it in 19th July. It is 2026. You have graduated with your doctorate degree. With respect to your program of study, You are being engaged by a company or an institution to provide an introductory lecture on what is research. Why research matters in your, why does research matter in your discipline? Why research matters in your discipline or in society? What informed the choice of your PhD topic or thematic area? You are finished doing. So what informed the choice of your PhD topic or thematic area? What you aimed to achieve? What did you aim to achieve, or what you aimed to achieve? Okay, and what and why it was significant at the time you started a PhD. So what is research? Why research matters in your discipline and society? What informed the choice of your PhD topic? What you aimed to achieve and why it was significant at the time that you started the PhD research. Okay, using relevant examples to your discipline, prepare a professional PowerPoint presentation with respect to the needs of your client. Kindly draw on chapters 1 and 2 of the reference text of this course. Further, only a maximum of 30 slides are allowed and a minimum of 22 slides. You'll be assessed based on your originality, innovation, and ability to present the content in a comprehensible manner. Deadline for submission is Monday, 19 July. Do not copy from each other. If you copy from each other, I'll cancel the two of you your work. So don't copy from each other. You can discuss, but let everybody go and write his own. You can discuss, but everybody should design his PowerPoint on his own. Design the PowerPoint on your own. I'm testing a lot of things in you. You are academics, and most of you are going to be academics. Some of you are going to be politicians in future. You should be able to know how to do a very good PowerPoint design. I've got people here in third year, and they're still very bad in doing PowerPoint designs, and I want to stop that. So I'm not giving the assignment, not just as written assignment. This one is just a PowerPoint you are going to do. So I've taught you something today. I've taught you what is research. I've taught you about why research matters and how it links to your discipline. I've taught about some number of things. I just want you to read the text too, and then you yourself develop your own PowerPoint and then reflect on your own work that you are going to do in 2026. So you have to reflect on the work in 2026. So the date on your work should be 2026. You are going to the future. Thank you very, very, very much. I think now the people who I've held you for 6 minutes, and I think they can leave. Let me answer a few questions from those who have their hands up. Cynthia, let's go. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. I wanted to find out, when you mentioned that in gathering qualitative data, sometimes you need to be non-rigid, or you need to be flexible. I wanted to find out at what point you try to change. Is it at the first observance that your questions are not relevant to, let's say, your respondent, or at the time where you realize that it is becoming a trend that your questions are not quite relevant, or you just have to let it run for some time? So my question actually has to do with, at what point do you vary it? Thank you.
It depends on what you're doing. If you're collecting your data at the level of the individual and you are looking for something and you are trying to collect data at the individual level, you know what you're looking for. Please, at that point in time, you can vary to see so that you can get all the data you're looking for from that person. But if you're talking about the thing changing your whole study, then you have to collect enough to be able to say there's a trend that you wanted to study women and women who are fashion designers who use WhatsApp to sell their products. And you want to do it in Agbozomen and realize that the fashion designers, they are using Facebook, they're not using WhatsApp. So after some time, you realize that you have to stop asking questions on WhatsApp and ask questions on Facebook rather. Do you understand? But then one cannot be just the first instance. It has to be a little point of get to a little bit of saturation. There's something in qualitative research we call point of saturation, where the end person you collect data from is not very different from almost the first 7 ends or the first few ends. They give you the same story. Then you stop collecting, or you're getting the same outcome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Grace, okay.
Prof.
Yeah.
Please, can you please give the difference between the purpose and then the objective of the research again, please?
Okay, I didn't go into details of that one. The purpose of the study is your general objective. Then the objectives of the study are we break down the purpose to be able to achieve the objective, to achieve the objective, to achieve the purpose. You break down the purpose into objective to achieve the purpose. So when you have a purpose, it's kind of the general direction where you are going, but you have to break them into incremental steps, and that is what we call the secondary objectives. Some universities have primary objective and secondary objective. The primary objective is the purpose, and the secondary objective is what we are calling objectives here. You break them down. So when you put all the objectives together, it should solve the quest of the purpose.
Okay.
Good.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But that's the chapter 8 of the book. You see if you read if you watch the video on research methodology, research purpose, research proposal writing, you'll find it there. So
please,
David, you can ask your question. I want to demonstrate how to get the videos. So sorry, I've gone off, and some of you are leaving.
Hello.
Yes, please talk.
Please, what's that? Is there a significant difference between the classic edition and then the second edition?
Okay, so if you have a classic edition, it's an old one. The second edition is much more far ahead of the classic. Classic is around the first time, around 2017 or 2016 or 2015. I can't even remember. So if you want, what we are using now is a 2020 edition. There's even a 2021 edition that they are bringing out, I think, next 2 weeks or 3 weeks. But that one is not aimed at you. It's a global audience one. Response to people in Russia and stuff. But what I'm just trying to say is that get the for the PhD program, I advise you to get the 2020 edition. That's the second edition. But the classic edition is a first edition. So if a second edition has come, then you should know that there will be a big difference between that one and then the other one. So it's quite different. It's quite different. Even the referencing styles, even the references inside are quite different. Examples too are different. Anyway, but any of the books, so far as you understand the videos, you can use it. It depends on you. But you see that sometimes if I talk about certain things, you may not find it there, especially in the 2020 edition. There's a strong discussion. There's a detailed discussion on theory. And the way we look at theory was a little bit different from how we looked at theory in all the other ones. And then analysis too, the thematic analysis in 2020 is not in any of the other ones. So it's all up to you. Anyway, please, can I take the other question or can I go ahead? When you go to YouTube and look for Richard Boateng Studios, you'll find this page. Find this page and you can use that one to get the video. So for example, yesterday's class that I had with the undergrads is this one, the MBA one. So I'll create one for the PhD students. But this is last year's group. I hope you can see. Please, am I sharing?
Yes,
we can see.
Okay, good. So this one, so this one is from yesterday's class. Okay. But you see the difference is a little bit of what I was teaching them and what I'm teaching you. Okay, good. So please, that brings me to the end. Any questions on the assignment? Somebody asked that the PowerPoint, should you use the UG PowerPoint template? I don't even expect you to use the UG. You are finished and graduated by that time. There'll be another assignment that you can use the UG template. The question says you have graduated. You are going to do your own consultancy and you are going to use UG template. Don't use UG template, but use a professional template. When I use a professional, I say try and use the Office 365, the new one, or the 2016. It has a very interesting features called design ideas. Go and learn how to use it. By the time you finish this course, I believe that you have developed new competencies in so many different areas. So go and learn how to do it and then know how to present content. Know how to establish, look at how I present my content to all of you. Take my time, I use color at the right places. I use content to be easy. I don't copy text and just put all the text plenty on the screen. like what some of you do. Have your session outline. Make sure that when you are moving from a session to every session, you introduce that session as a session slide or a section slide before you start the session content. Learn how to do that part. So don't just present the thing. Take your time and develop a very good one. That's what I say. I'm studying how innovative you can be able to do a good work. Now, you are going to do several presentations in the business school before you finish in your department. So the earlier you know how to be able to put presentation together in a unique form like this, the better. So when you do it on your own template, next time another assignment I'll give you, you will do it on the UG template. Then you can see the differences between the two. So if you're doing your own consultancy or you're doing that for the UG too, you know how to be able to combine the both knowledge I've gained. We are developing competencies. So that is my focus. Thank you very, very much. I hope the date is also good for you. 19th is enough time for you to start working. Okay. Any other question?
Yeah, Prof. Hello, Prof.
Yes, please.
Is there a way we can get the slides?
Oh, as for the slides, you get them. The old
Okay.
slides are even on the Sakai right now, but the new slides, because when I'm teaching, I bring changes into what I'm teaching. Hopefully by tomorrow morning you get it. When we finish the video and we work on the video, we'll put on the slides too for you. So you get the slides in the video, hopefully by tomorrow.
Okay, Prof.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, it's about to rain. Those of you who are on campus, so I think you should start thinking about leaving before you get stuck at home, stuck on campus. Okay then. Niai, how are you?
Prof, I'm doing well. Thank you, Prof.
Okay. Hey, Georgia, someone. I hope you're also doing fine.
Prof.
Okay. Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you too, Prof. And have a nice day.
Thank you, Prof. Thank you very much, Prof.
Have a super day.
Thank you, Prof.